Canadian Airlines are taking away flights to popular U.S. cities. This after many Canadian vacationers apparently are avoiding the U.S.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty.
Here's my problem with Canada. Canada was meant to be the 51st state because we subsidize Canada by $200 billion a year.
See, this is a fundamental mistake that the Americans are making. They think they will weaken us. They think that they can own us, quite frankly. That's what they think. We are going to get stronger. We're going to wait this out. They're going to come to the table. We're going to negotiate a good deal for the Canadians.
But we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We certainly don't want their automobiles. They make a lot of, millions of automobiles are sent in. I'd rather have them made in Michigan. I'd rather have them made in South Carolina.
Unfortunately, President Trump's actions have put that kinship under greater strain today than at any time in our storied history.
What if Canada, not the Middle East or United States, is Europe's secret energy weapon in the making? As Europe desperately scrambles for energy security in the shadow of Russia's aggression in Ukraine, Canada stands as a potential savior, though one currently unable to fully answer the call. The European Union finds itself in a precarious position. With approximately 90% of its natural gas imported and a significant portion historically coming from Russia, the EU's energy vulnerability has transformed from an economic concern into an urgent security crisis. This dependency has left European nations desperately seeking alternatives, as geopolitical tensions have rendered Russian supplies both politically toxic and strategically dangerous. Canada possesses energy resources that could fundamentally reshape Europe's security landscape. By 2030, Canada's liquefied natural gas export capacity is projected to reach 100 million tons annually. This positions the nation as exactly the kind of reliable partner Europe desperately needs in its diversification strategy. German politicians have been particularly vocal, emphasizing their preference for securing energy from Canada rather than continuing reliance on Russia.
The strategic energy equation: how Canadian resources could solve Europe's security crisis.
The timing couldn't be more critical. France and Germany have both publicly expressed interest in forging new energy partnerships, viewing Canada not just as a commercial opportunity, but as a strategic lifeline. For the European Commission, which has been rapidly revising its energy security framework, Canadian resources align perfectly with their diversification objectives: stable, democratic, and untethered from authoritarian influence. Yet despite this perfect match on paper, significant obstacles remain. Canada's energy riches face a frustrating bottleneck. Inadequate pipeline infrastructure severely limits its ability to export eastward. Production centers in Alberta's oil sands lie thousands of kilometers from Atlantic ports, creating logistical challenges that cannot be quickly overcome without substantial investment. This infrastructure gap has prompted discussions around joint Canadian-European investment initiatives. Concrete proposals include developing new LNG terminals along Canada's eastern seaboard and expanding pipeline networks specifically designed to facilitate European exports. These represent not merely commercial ventures, but strategic infrastructure with profound geopolitical implications. Moving beyond fossil fuels to a greener future, Canada's abundant critical mineral reserves provide another vital dimension to this emerging partnership. As Europe accelerates its transition to renewable energy, these minerals, essential components in green technologies, represent a sustainable aspect of cooperation that aligns with the EU's climate objectives while addressing supply chain vulnerabilities. The growing tensions with the United States under the Trump administration add another layer of urgency to this potential realignment. Recent tariffs on Canadian metals have ripple effects throughout the energy sector, creating additional incentives for Ottawa to diversify its export markets beyond America. The potential payoff extends far beyond commercial transactions. For Europe, secure access to Canadian energy would transform its geopolitical posture, removing a vulnerability that has constrained its diplomatic options. For Canada, deeper energy integration with Europe represents an opportunity to reduce its economic exposure to the United States, while establishing itself as a global energy power with diversified markets.
Redefining Western defense, Canada's military integration with Europe.
While energy partnerships might reshape Europe's geopolitical landscape, an even more consequential shift is occurring in the military sphere. Behind closed doors, Canadian defense officials are negotiating access to Europe's €150 billion defense fund, a development that could fundamentally alter the Western security architecture that has defined international relations for decades. This represents a strategic realignment with profound implications for North American and European security integration. The European Defense Fund serves as a watershed opportunity for both parties. Its procurement rules require member states to source a significant percentage of weapon systems from European suppliers, a provision initially designed to nurture Europe's indigenous defense industrial base. However, Europe's defense sector currently lacks the capacity to meet the surge in demand triggered by the Ukraine conflict, creating a strategic opening that Canada's defense industry appears increasingly positioned to fill. What makes Canada particularly attractive as a defense partner is its complementary industrial capabilities. Like pieces of a strategic puzzle, Canadian firms have developed expertise in radar systems that could enhance European air defense networks, while their ammunition production facilities could address critical shortages across European arsenals. Additionally, Canada's military training infrastructure offers specialized capabilities that complement existing European facilities, creating potential for integrated defense preparation programs. These complementary capabilities have elevated discussions to the highest levels. When Canadian Defense Minister Mélanie Joly confirmed ongoing talks with Europe about defense procurement cooperation, she signaled the foundation for an emerging defense industrial alliance, one that could provide Europe with military-industrial capacity beyond their domestic producers' current capabilities. The potential integration extends to major weapons platforms, exemplified by Canada's consideration of Sweden's Gripen fighter jets. Unlike American alternatives that typically impose strict operational controls, the Saab proposal includes provisions for local assembly and maintenance within Canada, establishing a template for technology transfer that preserves Canadian sovereignty while strengthening European defense industrial capacity. Evidence of this military integration already exists in practice. Joint Canadian-European military exercises have increased in frequency and complexity, while technology sharing between defense firms has accelerated, building the operational relationships necessary for deeper strategic integration. For Canada, these European partnerships offer technological sovereignty that U.S. defense cooperation has historically restricted. Defense agreements with American firms often come with significant limitations on how Canada can modify, repair, or transfer acquired systems, effectively subordinating Canadian defense policy to American priorities. This emerging military-industrial relationship functions like a carefully calibrated alliance, transforming both European and Canadian strategic positions. For Europe, Canadian defense capabilities strengthen continental defense without increasing American dependence. For Canada, integration with European defense markets provides an alternative to U.S. dominance, enhancing Ottawa's strategic autonomy and bargaining position with Washington.
The legal pathway. Can Canada actually join the European Union?
As Canada builds closer military and energy partnerships with Europe, a more fundamental obstacle emerges. Can a North American nation actually join the European Union? The answer hinges on a single clause in EU foundational law that predates any serious consideration of transatlantic membership, a 33-word provision that could derail deeper integration before negotiations even begin. Article 49 of the Treaty on European Union creates a clear geographical barrier by stating that any European state may apply for membership. This immediately raises the question of whether Canada qualifies as European. The EU has demonstrated considerable flexibility in this definition, as evidenced by Cyprus, a nation geographically situated in Western Asia that successfully joined in 2004. Despite lying entirely east of Europe's traditional boundaries, approximately 100 kilometers from Turkey's southern coast and over 500 kilometers from the Greek mainland, Cyprus's cultural and historical connections to Greece
proved sufficient to overcome its geographical limitations. This flexibility derives from a pivotal 1992 European Commission document that intentionally avoids rigid geographical definitions. Instead, it characterizes European identity as a mosaic of shared experiences, common values, and historical interactions, rather than physical location. Like a patchwork quilt of traditions woven together over centuries, the document acknowledges that the boundaries of European civilization cannot be definitively fixed, allowing interpretations to evolve with geopolitical realities. Canada possesses substantial European credentials through its parliamentary democracy modeled after Westminster, bilingual English-French heritage, and legal systems derived from both British common law and French civil code. Approximately 60% of Canadians claim European ancestry, with significant populations tracing their heritage to the UK, France, Italy, Germany, and other EU member states. Despite these connections, full EU membership would require treaty revision, a process demanding unanimous consent from all 27 member states. Canada might instead consider alternative integration models that provide substantial benefits without requiring treaty changes. The European Economic Area Framework, which currently integrates Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein into the EU's single market, offers access to the free movement of goods, services, capital, and people. Alternatively, Canada could pursue a Swiss-style approach based on sectoral bilateral agreements, allowing strategic integration in priority areas while preserving its relationship with the United States. As legal pathways are debated, Canadians themselves show a leaning toward this bold redefinition of identity. A recent Angus Reid poll found 44% of Canadians support exploring EU membership, with only 34% opposed. Support appears strongest among younger demographics, 18 to 34, and in Quebec, 52%, and Ontario, 46%, where European cultural connections remain most pronounced. For such integration to advance, specific legal frameworks would need development, likely including a new category of associated state within EU structures, bilateral regulatory harmonization protocols, and novel dispute resolution mechanisms respecting both legal systems. What we're witnessing between Canada and the European Union transcends typical diplomatic maneuvering. This emerging partnership represents a strategic realignment with far-reaching implications for global power structures. The foundation for this shift extends beyond immediate reactions to American policies. It's grounded in mutual interests that will endure regardless of Washington's political shifts. History provides instructive parallels. Geopolitical realignments begin with practical cooperation before evolving into formalized relationships. Canada's position, with NATO membership and cultural connections to Europe, creates fertile ground for integration. As complementary strategic needs draw Canada and Europe closer, we may witness a fundamental restructuring of transatlantic relations, like a bridge being rebuilt with stronger materials, promising a more resilient Western alliance system for decades to come.